Welcome back, everybody, to BVarsity Live. I'm your host, Trevor Horn. We are brought to you by Grapevine MSP and Motor City Buick GMC. Before we get into football and all that stuff with Larry Parker here, this is one conversation we were just having off air. First off, Larry, welcome to the show. And it sucks that we're doing this a couple days before you and Sarah and your children move back to Kansas City. And that's the reason we wanted to have you on, because I wanted to give you a proper send-off.
Okay.
But
thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate it. We were just having – so you've been a physical trainer for years. Mm-hmm. That's been your livelihood for a good amount of your post-football career.
Correct.
You're also, much like me, I think quite transparent when it comes to our personal lives in social media and with strangers. And that was one thing I did 2 weeks ago was I finally told everybody, hey, I've been working out at Car Elite with Eric Mahanke since April 10th. I walked in the door. I was 283 pounds. And I was 48 and a half inches, 49 inches, 49 inches. Mm-hmm. I've cut 12 inches and 30 pounds off since then. And you were asking me, what have I been doing? And obviously I work out 3 times a week. But it's really the diet. How much of when you see people walk in the door and say, oh, I really need to do this, and then they say, and you say, well, what are you eating? And they tell you what they're eating, it makes you cringe.
Most definitely. I tell people when they walk into my gym, more important than the working out, are you willing to fix your fork? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to eat right? If you don't eat right, it's all for naught. I tell you, you're going to be in shape, but you're still going to be chubby, and then you're going to be mad at me because you didn't lose your weight. Yep. So immediately I can tell if people are going to really, really do it if they're willing to change their diet. And that's where it starts. It's, what they say, it's 80-20. Yep. It's 100% that. 80% diet, 20% workout.
That's exactly what it is. It's about when you eat, because for us, I don't know, I mean, you guys hear the stories about what we do is, we're out and about, and 11 o'clock comes around, and I go, man, I just forgot to eat dinner because I was out covering a volleyball game or a football game or whatever, basketball, baseball, and I go, I got to eat. And so my old mindset was, I'm just going to cruise through, Del Taco at 11 o'clock, grab a couple chicken burritos and head home. Yep. I don't do that anymore. I prep everything.
You got to prep.
I prep everything, and if I haven't prepped, guess what? There's always vegetables and hummus in the fridge.
What's that saying? If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail?
Yeah,
there 100%. It is. That's exactly what
That's
it is.
That's all it is. Yep. I prep the meals.
I'm the same exact way.
My wife and I go to work at the same time every day. I get up. I got about 2-3 hours in the morning. I can sit and prep the meals for us because I do all the cooking, and then we move on.
Once you get into the habit of prepping, it's actually kind of cool. You like it. You know where your food's coming from. You know exactly what time you're eating. It actually becomes a lot easier. You just have to start the process.
Eric always says, if something has a label, don't eat it.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing.
All the processed food, all that. No, it's terrible.
You shop on the outside of the grocery stores, that mindset. Yeah, it's incredible. People don't talk about it enough about, one of the big, we always talk about, mental health is a big issue, obviously. Gun control, obviously, is an issue in everybody's forefront. But really, right now, obesity and how people are eating and what people are eating now, because so much bad food is so made readily available, especially to the poorer communities.
And it's cheaper, too.
And it's so much cheaper.
The bad food is cheaper.
It is. It's so much cheaper, and it's not right. We need to make healthy food more affordable and more readily available to those that cannot afford it, because it's those that are being directly affected that are going to have diabetes later on in life, are going to have childhood diabetes, are going to be overweight, and going to have health issues, and which is going to lead to more medical bills, which is going to lead into more debt.
As a society, we have to fix this problem.
100%. So I just wanted to bring that up really quickly because I know that it's forefront in your brain. But let's talk high school football. I mean, the league season starts up here tomorrow night across the board. You've seen a lot of football. What have you seen personally, the good, the bad, and the ugly so far this year?
We're not competing well as a whole, and I think there's a lot of reasons why. I've been kind of vocal on social media with what I thought some of the coaches weren't doing their job here in town. But I kind of got to take a step back from that a little bit, because it's kind of more than just the coaches. First starts with the kids. The kids aren't motivated, I think, like they used to be. Alex Wallace, who's a coach at Bakersfield Christian High School, made a great comment. He said, in watching Oaks Christian, he said, Oaks Christian has football players. In Kern County, we have guys that like to play football. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, that's exactly
and I think that's where we're at. On my end, I train these guys, many of these guys at all the high schools here in Kern County, and they just don't have the commitment to it. Like, I know me and my era did. Like, we didn't have a social life. And I know these kids have social media and all those things that keep them distracted from the main thing, as we call it. But they're not willing to sacrifice. And it's starting to show across the board at every high school.
But how do you change that? How do you change that mentality? Because that's a societal issue where everybody's got a lack of attention span, really, because of so many different options. Everything, you pay attention to this, and then this happens, and you forget about this.
Right.
How do you? Is there a way that we fix that as a society?
That's a tough one. I think that's the $1 million question. I mean, you have guys like myself. There's a few other guys in town that have played at the next levels of football, and I think our youth have to connect to people like us. Unfortunately, in our area, at every corner, there's a guy that's training. There's a guy that's doing this who might be a dad who starts out training his son, but starts training a group of guys. And I totally support the fathers and dads that that work their kids out and help get them better. But you got to get these kids connected with the people that have done it. And it's not even about the money, because half the time I train people, it's not even about finances. Most of the people I train for free.
Yeah, those ones that you want to train,
exactly.
Maybe not have the money, but you can't. You don't have the mentality to say no to them.
Yes, I don't. And some people say that's to a fault. But hey, somebody did it for me, so I feel like I got to do it. I got to do it for these kids that want it. And unfortunately, I just don't see a lot of kids that want it. I'll literally flat out tell kids, you can train with me for free. Just show up. They don't show up.
That's incredible. Do you feel like you're leaving town with the city in a better place than the way you found it when you got done with your football?
I think it's moving in a direct. I think the eyes are starting to open as to the problems that we have here, and I think I begin to start the conversation as to how we can get better as a county, because we're down right now. We can't compete at all with Southern California.
Well, let me pose this, and I don't know if you saw this comment, but I commented on Dijon Jernigan's Facebook post, and I said, listen, look at it this way. Bakersfield and Long Beach have pretty much the same population. Now, Long Beach is a little bit different because it's surrounded by the rest of Southern California, where Bakersfield's a little bit more isolated. But there were like 7 high schools in Long Beach, and there's 17 in Bakersfield, plus 2 small private schools. That's a diluted talent field.
Very much so.
There are still football players here. But think about it. Think about it if Ridgeview and Independence were one high school.
Right.
If Stockdale and Liberty. If Foothill and Miramonte were one. If Golden Valley and South were one.
Right.
If Foothill or Frontier and Centennial were one.
Now the game changes, but that's
game changer.
That's a game changer. So that's something that the Kern High School District is going to have to do something about, because what happens is with 17 high schools now, that means there's 9. That's 9 more schools. That's 9 more head coaches that need to be paid for, and there's just not enough. There's not 9 guys qualified to run a program, and that's where we're at. We got
9 guys plus another 9.
A 9 for all the other levels.
Assistants on each team.
Yes.
And then your JV, and then your Frosh Soft.
Yep.
And then you've got some kids that may not be the right kids to be on the field sometimes either.
Right.
And I know we want everybody to be able to get a chance to participate, but sometimes you don't. But then what happens too is maybe Foothill and Miramonte actually get a JV and a Frosh Soft team if you combine them and make them a
They currently don't have
no.
JV?
No,
They don't
Miramonte.
Wow.
Miramonte canceled their JV program this year, so they could have their Frosh Soft coaches learn to coach the Frosh Soft kids, and then they left the sophomores down on the Frosh Soft level that couldn't compete at the varsity level, and they brought those freshmen and sophomores up to varsity level.
I've heard of that, but you know what? I've never really thought about that dynamic of they don't have lower level programs.
Yeah, Taft has had to cancel their JV and or Frosh Soft in the past, but that's an issue out in Taft. But here in town, Golden Valley, I mean, they have a very small roster, so I mean, it's a tough situation. Favorite memory in Bakersfield for you?
My favorite memory. Oh, this is a no-brainer. My junior year. We're playing Foothill High School. Foothill has Rashawn Sheehy, Joey Porter, all these big-time names. We've got on our end, we've got me, Jeremy Stott, Kenny Calvin,
Two
Steve
dudes
Wofford.
that you just were on with earlier today on Renegade
and
Report.
we were both undefeated. Rashawn was new to Bakersfield. He came from L.A., came from a great Sarah program, and he was the talk of the town. You know, he was big, he was strong, he was fast, he was all those things. And we faced him. They ended up having to move the game to a Thursday night at Bakersfield College, and we filled it up 18,000 to watch a high school football game, and it was an awesome game. We ended up getting the victory, but it was we barely won, and it was a fight the whole game. Everybody was in town. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience.
And then one last thing, because I know that you we we had a great conversation Friday about this. Will Harris, who's a defensive backs coach for University of Washington, Ashley Ambrosi, who is the defensive back coach for Colorado. The four of us were talking, and we were about injuries and how those things affect it. Does that ever affect the way that you talk to a young child or a parent of a young kid playing football about the trials and tribulations you're having to deal with your body? Does that change the way that you tell somebody whether or not that they play this game? Or do you think like the game and the way it's being taught is moving in the right direction?
Have mixed emotions on that as well. From my position, I'm banged up. I mean, I played a long time. I played 4 years in the NFL, and I'm banged up. I have some physical issues. I have some mental health issues that I've had to deal with over this time. But when I talk to parents, I tell them the real deal. I said, this is a violent game, and from my perspective and the things that I go through, I honestly wouldn't let my son play in elementary school. That's me personally. I'm not saying you're wrong if you go do it, but the brains are still developing. There's no need to put an athlete in that environment until they have to. Our society says otherwise, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. But me personally, I say hold off. Play all the other sports so the athlete can learn their body, and by the time they get to high school and they're ready to play contact, they know what their body can do. I've seen countless times where kids were good enough to be, good high school players, maybe even college players, but on the youth level, they weren't as big. And they got their heart taken from them because the big guy just came and killed them, and they didn't get a chance to experience high school, on some higher levels. So that's
funny
my
because
take.
I was talking to Mahanky about that yesterday, and we were just talking about youth football because he's coaching his son's junior high team in the NOR, and he's with Ken Chapman, and Jeff Buckley's kid, Bucky's kid is on that, Brian Nixon's kid is on that team. I mean, it's a who's who, but we're talking about it. It's like you don't know at that age, you don't know because a kid hasn't matured. Their body hasn't grown to its full potential. So you might have a kid on the bench that may end up being a in high school because they were just a late bloomer.
So the biggest what I noticed when I got to college and especially in the NFL, most guys didn't play didn't play football until high school.
Yeah.
Like the big time names didn't play until high school. Some of them didn't play high school at all. Some didn't play college at all. It's Stephen Neal. He didn't even play college football.
We played flag football in junior high where I grew up in Sacramento because that's all that was offered. They didn't allow us to play tackle football. But I played on a team that had a dude that went to Sac State, two dudes that played deep into junior college football, and then we had Terrence Wagner, who was offensive lineman for the New York Giants on that team. Worked out fine for Terry. Worked out fine for Terry.
I know. It's just right now everybody wants their kid to be the next superstar. And we're seeing if you get them, quote, we're seeing if you get them started early, they have a better chance of that. I don't believe that's necessarily true. Keep them active in all the sports so they can learn different movement patterns and be the best athlete they can be when it's time for the contact.
And you can also just allow your child to be your child.
Exactly. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Have fun. These kids, sometimes at Golden Empire are putting in more hours than NFL players are.
Do you think that that's also a detriment to those kids that they're getting pushed away? Do you feel like you were pushed as much as kids are being pushed now by parents and youth football coaches, maybe pay-to-play type coaches more so than you were, and maybe that's pushing them away?
That I think so too. I think by the time they get to high school, they're just burnt out. There's a kid named Dustin Hopkins that he's a year older than me. In 5th and 6th grade, set the national record for the 100 meters. Dustin Hopkins, everybody probably remembers him from the track world. But he was pushed in soccer and track from such a young age. By the time he got to high school, he didn't want to play anything. He didn't want to play anything at all. He's the fastest kid in the nation. By the time he got to high school, he was done.
That's incredible.
Yep.
All right, Larry, you're not going anywhere. You're going to do our preview and prediction. So we're going to continue a lot of this conversation while we do that. So thank you. I appreciate you being on. We are going to take a short break. Josh Bennett, I think John Menace is coming in too, but we're going to do our preview and prediction. Get in here, Josh. Come on, buddy. We'll be right back after this.